That's another wild and somewhat irritating night of racing in the books. Before I get into the race video, I need to give a huge shout out to two of our good friends up in the stands, Scott and Sarah Boyer. Kelly met Scott and Sarah a couple years ago now, up in the little corner that she records her videos from, and they've been just awesome fans of ours since then. Just great friends. And Scott hand carved us our race numbers out of 100-year-old red oak. I mean, these are just awesome. I've never been given something like this before, and I really, really, truly appreciate these, particularly because my father was very much into woodworking, and he would have just loved these. Big, big thanks to you, Scott. These are awesome. I suppose I should also turn off this big ass fan. So we installed a regular ceiling fan in here a couple weeks ago to help with the heat in here in the summer, and it made a big difference, but you couldn't feel it near the edges of the shop, and so we opted to upgrade to this helicopter. It moves the plastic around in the ceiling a lot, so it's a little noisy and hard to hear when it's on, but what a difference. So anyway, we went into Saturday with a gut feeling that we were going to see some cars from around the area because most everywhere else rained out. 35, I think, was one of the only other local tracks that raced because of the rain, and they ended up getting rained out halfway through their program. So we did have quite the car count at the track. They were also running sport mods and Crown Vics as well, so we had a full evening of racing. The sport mods were great to watch, to be honest. I wouldn't mind seeing those as a class at the track more often. Big Hornet count. I think it's the highest car count we've seen all year. What was it? 26 cars? 24 cars? Something in that neighborhood. They just kept coming in and coming in. And Kevin McCoy showed up, and Kenny Stewart showed up, and Chris Meyer showed up, and it was going to be a fast evening. As soon as those guys rolled into the pits, I knew we had work to do. Lined up for our qualifiers, and it started to rain. And that's when I learned that rainwater pools directly off the roof, straight into my lap and into my shoes. So that was fun. They rolled the track back in. Of course, this pushed the show back a little bit, but they ran the track back in, and we got our laps in, and I clicked off a pretty decent time. I think it was like second or third fastest. I think third fastest. And ended up starting second row inside in heat 2. McCoy and Stewart were both in that one, and I think Brody tried to jump the start by a country mile, and they docked him a row, so that put Kenny up front. And they went green, and Kenny got up front, obviously, and then Kevin dropped in behind him, and it was a damn good race for several laps. And then Kenny was ripping the bottom side and just holding the lead. And it came all the way down to turn 4 of the last lap, and they came up on a car that had been pretty much actively blowing up the whole entire heat race. And Kenny had nowhere to go, and that boxed him in, and Kevin squeezed past him. It was still a close race even after that, but damn good race. I was in heat 2, as I said, and I started inside second row. Cordell started front row outside, and I knew it was going to be a chase just on the lineup. And we took off, and I had nothing for him. The track was, it was interesting. The line I liked to run coming out of 1 and 2 wasn't there. It was kind of a one-line track, and I had nothing for him. So that's how we finished first and second. Heat 3, Alex was in it, and Alex started second row inside, I believe, just like I did, and Landon started next to him, and it was like Natalie and I think there was another car in the front row. Natalie jumped her start. They docked her a row, so Alex got to move up to the pole, but for some reason, they left Landon up there when he wasn't supposed to be there, but they let him run anyway. But Alex took off from that green flag drop and put a pretty good gap on the field right off the rip. He was kind of finding a groove, finding a better groove than I was finding out there. And Landon slowly started reeling him in. And then on the last lap, Landon got underneath Alex and kind of pushed him up out of the groove that he was running and managed to squeeze past him. It was a really, really close race. It was another good one. So that put both of us in the redraw. And I happened to redraw number one. I think Alex drew 5, I believe. I think he started third row inside. And I was starting on the pole. I had Kenny Stewart starting on the outside front row next to me. And we made our way around to the stripe, and I took off. And by turn 1, I think I may have had half a car in front of him. I was quite surprised about that, honestly. I ended up doing 2 laps pretty consistently. My lap 1 of the feature was a 19.2. I'm pretty sure that was my fastest lap all season, just about. I knew there was a lot of fast cars behind me, and I had to keep some good momentum going. The problem was the track had changed pretty dramatically since the heat race, and the line that I had been running had changed pretty dramatically. And my biggest problem was coming out of turn 2. I kept coming out too high, and it was really, really soft up there, and it just slowed my car down a ton. Or I'd start pushing real bad, and I'd have to come off the throttle, and I'd lose all my momentum. It was turn 2 killed me. I had 2 laps, had a pretty good gap on the field, and lap 3, Cordell came up the bottom side and passed me on the back stretch, and then absolutely doors me twice. Just drives his car straight into the side of me. Hard enough that it knocked 3 degrees of camber out of my left front wheel and all of my toe. It's straight up and down now. I literally went straight into turn 3 after he blasted me, and my car went sideways in front of Kenny, like dove down to the infield. I stayed in the throttle and finished my race, but the car was a complete disaster. I thought that was kind of a bullshit move, but it is what it is, I guess. I can tell you this. There's only been 2 cars that have been consistently hitting me all season, and it's really getting kind of old. All the things that I've learned in the racing world so far, I've learned all the mechanical stuff. I've got the cars figured out pretty well. And I gotta be honest, I'm pretty proud of the engines that I've built in these 2 cars and the setups because, I mean, we're holding our own against some of the fastest cars around. It's just the drama and the games that people play while we're racing that I have yet to figure out. I'm learning a little more each time. My patience is just drawing thinner each time certain incidents keep happening. But I'll move on from that. I at least managed to hold on to second place for the rest of the race, with my car being kind of a handful to keep where I wanted it. I did manage to click off a couple decent laps and gained a little bit of ground, but there were several laps that I came out of turn 2 and I just found myself in the soft stuff at the top and would have to come off the throttle, and every time that happened, Cordell would gain another car on me, and I knew it was pretty much over from then. My last lap or so, I did gain a little bit of ground, and then we came up on some lap traffic, and I was really wanting to try to make a good move there, but I didn't have the confidence that I'd be able to keep the car where I wanted to stick it without crashing a bunch of cars, so I can't complain. I mean, I can complain, but second place, still, all the cars that I was racing against last night, I'm proud of it. This has still been my best season of racing yet, and I'm only in second place by 135 points right now. I think we've got 2 races left, I'm pretty sure, and I think I still got a chance at this thing. I mean, even if I get second place, it's still achieving my goal of doing better than the previous year, so I'd be happy about that. But I can tell you, I'm going to give it hell until the very end. Not really much to discuss on the damage on this thing. I can tell you that strut's probably bent because I tried pulling this thing back out. See all the paint on the tire. One race on that tire, already hit. One race on that strut, already bent. And haven't really looked too much into the steering. The tie rod actually looks straight, but the toe is definitely straight up, so I'm gonna have to figure out where I lost all that toe at. But yeah, that was that fun-filled evening. Still proud of what we've built, still proud of our results, and we'll get these things fixed up and we'll be at the next race Saturday here. It's the Hornet Nationals. I'm not sure if they're actually calling it the Hornet Nationals, but that's the date of it, and we'll be there for that one. See you in the next video.